Have you ever looked across a frozen lake and wondered what might be underneath the ice? Tonight, we descend into a Scandinavian nightmare where grief has a voice and the cold one waits beneath the lake. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more. I suppose I should start by saying this wasn't supposed to be a retreat, not in the traditional sense. The therapist used words like reset, recalibration, recovery. I hated all of them. What I needed wasn't in their vocabulary. I needed to be forgotten. I needed to disappear from the world until I could look at a photo of her without my lungs clamping shut. Until I could hear my own thoughts without her voice riding them like a wave. So, I booked a one-way flight to northern Sweden. Middle of January. The sun hadn't risen in days and wouldn't for weeks. Perfect. The cabin belonged to a friend of a friend, an old hunting lodge near a frozen lake, abandoned after someone had drowned there years ago. It sat right on the edge of the water, crouched under a thick pine canopy that cut the wind but seemed to drink the light. When I stepped inside, it felt like time had been locked in place. The floorboards creaked like they were remembering something. Dust blanketed everything. The wood-burning stove stood cold, an iron mouth waiting to be fed. Windows were crusted with frost, each one an abstract painting of ice. But the lake was the first thing I noticed. It stretched out like a silver coin, smooth and untouched. A sheet of perfect glass, maybe 50 yards from the back porch. I couldn't see the other side, just trees, snow, and that endless white sky. The first night, I didn't dream that it was the only night that I didn't. I'd brought books, a journal, my therapist's suggestion. I stacked them on the rickety table beside a bottle of bourbon I'd smuggled in like a shameful secret. By the third day, I hadn't cracked a single page. I just sat and listened, and I swear I could hear it, something in the lake, something beneath the ice. Not movement exactly, but pressure, like when you're standing in an old house and feel the floor shift ever so slightly underfoot, though no one else is there. On the fifth night, I woke up sweating. Not from heat, the stove had long gone out, but from the dream. Her voice, as clear as it ever was, whispering, "It's cold down here, love." Her name was Elise, and she's been dead for 11 months. It happened in April. A car crash. Wet roads, sharp turns, one drunk driver. I wasn't in the car with her. I was at home, watching reruns of some mindless sitcom, laughing at jokes I can't remember while her car spun out and flipped 3 times into a ditch. When I got the call, I was holding a sandwich. I remember that detail because I dropped it, and the sound of it hitting the floor is burned into my memory more than the rest. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't always howl. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it lies quiet for days, waiting. And then it sinks its teeth into your spine when you're tying your shoes or brushing your teeth. By week 2 in the cabin, the dreams had become more vivid. Elise's voice no longer whispered. It sang. Soft lullabies in Swedish, though she never spoke the language. And always the same phrase at the end. "Come see me. I'm waiting." One morning I found myself standing barefoot at the edge of the lake. I don't remember waking up. Don't remember walking outside. I was just there. No coat, no gloves, breath steaming in the blue twilight, staring down at the ice. There was something under it. A shadow. It moved slightly, then stilled. My feet screamed from the cold. I stumbled backward, fell into the snow, and scrambled like a child away from the edge. When I got back to the cabin, there were wet footprints on the floor. I tried to rationalize it. Sleepwalking, hallucinations, isolation playing tricks on my mind. But I knew that voice. I know that voice that no dream can replicate the tiny crack Elise had in her upper register. The way she'd hum through her nose before speaking. The click of her tongue when she was thinking. I could hear all of it in those dreams. Exactly. Uncomfortably perfect. On day 16, I found the carvings behind a cabinet that had been nailed shut, possibly to keep mice out. I found an old wall exposed. Symbols carved deep into the wood, arranged in a circular pattern. At the center, a figure with wide, fish-like eyes, long hair flowing outward like kelp, and arms wrapped around what looked like a man's skull. It was crude, but not childish. Ritualistic. I took a photo, then covered it up. I didn't sleep that night. The dreams were worse. Elise was crying now. I heard the sound of dripping water. And something else, a second voice. Low, bubbling, inhuman. The next morning, I built a fire early. I tried to shake the feeling that something had followed me back from the dream. I opened my journal and started writing, not even knowing what I'd say. What spilled out wasn't mine. Underneath the stillness, the cold one waits. She comes to those who listen. She sings through the mouths of the dead. She knows your name. I didn't write that. I swear on her grave. I didn't write that. The bourbon didn't help anymore. It burned but offered no warmth. I started talking out loud to keep myself anchored, reading labels on the cans in the pantry, describing objects in the room. Chair, table, stove, clock, over and over. Anything to drown out the voice. But even then, when I stopped, I could hear something scratching at the back of the walls. Not mice, not wood shifting. It was wet, measured, deliberate. I decided to hike to the nearest outpost, a ranger station a few kilometers away. It was risky in the snow, but I needed to talk to someone, to confirm that I hadn't lost my mind entirely. Halfway there, I passed an old Sami woman walking a sled dog. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost, said nothing, just crossed herself and kept walking. That was the first and last person I saw out there. When I returned, there were new footprints by the lake. Not mine, smaller, barefoot. The footprints vanished after 10 feet. I followed them cautiously, half expecting them to be gone with the wind. But the snow was still and undisturbed that day. Each print was distinct, narrow, with high arches and deep heel impressions, as if whoever had made them had stood there for a while, watching the cabin. They led from the trees to the lake, but then they stopped. Cleanly, no drag marks, no signs of turning back, as if the person had simply ceased to exist the moment they reached the edge of the ice. I crouched, staring down at the final imprint. My breath fogged the air, curling around me like mist. And then, somewhere just beyond that white horizon, I heard it again. A hum, high and faint, like wind through glass, but it carried a shape I recognized. A lullaby. The same one Elise used to sing to herself in the kitchen. She'd hum it while washing dishes, swaying gently, as if the melody lived in her bones. I closed my eyes, and I heard her voice. You always forget the second verse. I fell back in the snow, hands trembling. It wasn't just a memory. Not this time. The voice had come from the lake. I stood and backed away, eyes fixed on the ice. Nothing moved. Nothing broke through the surface, but I knew what I heard. That night, I lit every candle in the cabin. The generator had long given up after a storm 2 days earlier, and I couldn't trust the weak light of my headlamp. Shadows stretched tall and thin across the walls, and the carvings behind the cabinet seemed to shift when I looked too long. I opened the old books the previous owner had left behind, manuals, maps, a few journals. Most were moldy and unreadable, But in one, I found a folded sheet of paper, stained and brittle. A page torn from a larger volume, handwritten in faded brown ink.it was titled, De Kalde Singend, The Cold Singers. I barely slept, poring over the scrawled paragraphs. My Norwegian is clumsy at best, but I made out a few phrases. Beneath the ice they sleep. They speak in the voices of those you grieve, not spirits, but echoes. What you hear is not who you lost. They want the warmth of memory. One line chilled me. When the lake sings, do not answer. When the dead speak, turn away. I wanted to burn the page, but something stopped me. Instead, I tucked it into my coat pocket, like a charm, though I didn't believe in charms. Or I didn't until I heard Elise's voice again. This time, she said my name. Michael. Not in a whisper, not in a dream, but from the corner of the room, just behind my left shoulder. I turned so fast the chair clattered behind me. Nothing there, but the air was colder. My breath came out in short, panicked clouds. My heart hammered like I'd been running. I shouted her name. Loud. Once. Twice. No reply. Just the creak of the wood beneath me. Just the wind against the windows. I slept on the floor that night, near the fire, knife in hand, dreamless. But when I woke, I wasn't alone. There was a small pile of wet stones at the foot of my sleeping bag. Black, smooth, glistening. Lake stones. I hadn't brought them in. I kept the journal close after that. Every day I recorded everything: dreams, hallucinations, sounds, temperature, even my meals. A part of me thought I could track my own descent, catch it in the act. But another part believed the thing in the lake wasn't a symptom. It was a signal, a call. I stopped walking to the lake. Didn't matter. The lake came to me. At night, I heard the groan of the ice shifting. That deep, guttural creak that sounds almost like breath. Sometimes I swore it was footsteps. Other times, laughter. And always, always her voice. Closer now, clearer. You left me, Michael. You were supposed to be with me. On the 22nd day, I found something beneath the cabin. There's a hatch under the rug in the main room, warped wood and rusted hinges. I hadn't noticed it until then. Or maybe I had and chose to forget. But that morning, the rug had been pulled back, folded neatly, as if waiting. I opened it. The smell hit me first, wet earth and decay. A small crawl space led into the foundation, dark as pitch. I took a flashlight and dropped into the space. Dirt walls, low ceiling, packed snow. Nothing unusual at first, until I saw the altar. Stones, just like the ones left by my bed, arranged in a ring. At the center, a flat piece of driftwood, carved with the same symbol as on the wall. An eye, wide open, with roots extending outward like veins, and below it, in red, Hun ser deg, she sees you. I left the crawlspace shaking. I bolted the hatch, pushed the table over it. The lake groaned louder that night, like it was laughing. The dreams returned in force, not just Elise, but others. Faces I didn't recognize, pale and waterlogged. Some were children, some ancient, all staring, all smiling, and their mouths moved in unison. We are her breath. We are her voice. Come to the water, Michael. I woke up screaming, and this time I wasn't alone. Something was standing at the window, tall, thin, wet. I didn't go to the window. I just sat there, frozen, breath held like it might buy me time. It didn't knock. It didn't move. It only watched. The figure was too tall to be Elise. Its shape didn't match anything human, But when it finally stepped away, leaving a wet smear across the frost-glazed glass, I heard her voice trail behind it. "You left me in the dark." I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. I began boarding the windows with what I had: old planks, firewood, anything solid. I buried the hatch under furniture. I stacked snow in front of the door like a makeshift barrier, like a child hiding under the covers from the monster in the closet. But I knew better. You can't hide from the lake. Not up here. Not when it's already inside your head. On day 25, I woke to a sound I hadn't heard in weeks. The phone rang. It was the old rotary wall phone in the kitchen. I checked it the first week. No dial tone. Just dead air. But now it rang, long and slow. Each ring like a warning bell in an empty church. I answered it. Silence. Then static. Then Michael. Not Elise. Something pretending to be Elise. It wore her tone like a costume that didn't quite fit. "It's warmer down here. You'll see." Then a laugh. Gurgling. Wrong. I yanked the cord from the wall. The phone kept ringing. I went outside for the first time in days. Not by choice. I heard water dripping inside the cabin. And when I stepped into the living room, there was a trail, wet footprints, small and barefoot, leading from the hatch to the front door. It was open. I followed them to the lake. There was a hole in the ice now, perfectly round, as if cut with a giant drill. Black water rippled inside it, smooth and patient. I called her name. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me hoped, against everything, that it was her, that somehow Elise had clawed her way back from death to reach me. But what answered wasn't Elise. It rose from the hole like a shadow being exhaled from the deep. Too long, too thin, a body stretched by pressure and time. It had her face, but it wasn't her face. A smile that never reached the eyes. Lips too wide. The eyes, they glowed faintly blue, like light seen through ice. And it spoke. "We wore her shape for you. It fit your grief well." I ran. I didn't look back. I slipped in the snow, hit my shoulder, tore my palm open on a buried branch. But I kept running until I collapsed at the porch, gasping. I never told anyone this part, not even in the journals, because when I turned back to the lake, it had sealed itself shut. The ice was unbroken, smooth, untouched, like the hole, and the thing had never been there. I spent the next day burning everything I could: the driftwood altar, the books, the symbols that I knew it wouldn't save me. But fire was the only thing that made sense anymore. The only thing real. When I went to toss the last log into the stove, I saw something carved into the wood grain, blackened and rough. "Do not bury your dead in the ice." That night, I dreamed of her funeral, except it wasn't quite the same. In the dream, Elise's coffin wasn't lowered into earth. It was slid across the lake. And instead of her family, there were figures in long coats made of stitched-together skins. Their eyes glowed faintly, and they sang, "We return what you grieve. We give it voice. We feed it your warmth." I woke screaming, blood on my lip where I'd bitten through it. I was ready to leave, but when I opened the door, the woods were gone. Just gone. Not vanished. Replaced. A perfect white horizon. No trees, no wind, just snow and sky. Like I was trapped inside a painting of the world instead of the real thing. I took a step forward, and I heard her again. "Come, Michael. One step more." I stepped back, closed the door, locked it, then nailed it shut from the inside. That was yesterday. Or maybe longer. Time moves strange here now. The sky outside the windows never changes. The fire never seems to burn down, and the ice groans louder every hour. The last time I looked in the mirror, My eyes were turning pale, like hers, like theirs. I think the cold one is beneath me now, waiting down. I hear her scraping along the floorboards at night, whispering in a dozen voices, all of them mine, all of them hers, and one of them sounds like someone I haven't lost yet. So here's my warning. If you ever find yourself in a place where the lake never thaws, where the dead speak clearly, where grief wears a face you long to touch, don't listen, not even once. Because it's not your dead coming back. It's something that knows exactly what you'll trade to see them again. I stopped eating 3 days ago, not because I ran out of food. There's plenty left in the storeroom: canned goods, dried meat, powdered soup. I just don't feel hunger anymore. I only feel the cold and the pull. The lake calls every night now, not just in dreams. I hear it even when I'm awake. Low vibrations through the floor, like a drumbeat in the bones. Sometimes it's voices. Sometimes it's singing. Once, I heard my mother's voice. Then my sister. Then Elise again. All telling me the same thing. Come down. It's warmer in the deep. I've tried to resist. I've tried fire, steel, noise. None of it matters. You can't fight something that speaks in grief. You can't run from a place that's no longer part of the world. Last night, I found the hatch open again, but this time, there were steps carved into the dirt beneath it and water dripping from the ceiling. I grabbed the flashlight, the knife, the notebook, then I descended. The air in the crawl space was thick, damp, and humming. I don't mean metaphorically. It hummed, a constant low frequency that made my teeth ache and my eyes blur. I followed the steps downward, deeper than should be possible. There shouldn't have been a down. But the tunnel kept going. Packed earth became stone. Stone gave way to ice. Walls of it, smooth and pulsing faintly blue, like veins lit from within. Shapes moved behind it. Shadows in slow motion. Long limbs, blurred faces. Some looked like her, some didn't, but all watched me pass. At the bottom, the path opened into a vast cavern. In its center, a lake beneath the earth, still, black, endless, and on its shore, a single figure standing in the dark. It was Elise. Or what wore her shape, her head tilted as I stepped forward. The same smile, the same gentle, half-lidded gaze, but there was no warmth in it, only mimicry, like a mirror that remembers but doesn't feel. "Michael," she said. Her voice echoed not off the walls, but inside my skull. "You buried me in memory. We found you there." I raised the knife, not to hurt her, to remind myself what was real. But my hand trembled, and she had stepped closer. "You asked to see me again," it said. "You never stopped calling." And then the surface of the underground lake rippled. A shape rose, colossal, vaguely humanoid, made of black ice and ancient grief. Eyes like deep water lights. Mouths, plural, lined its arms, chest, even its stomach. All of them whispering the names of the dead. Not just mine. Everyone's. The cold one. It had no voice of its own. It used ours, stitched together from the things we longed for. Loved ones. Regrets. Wounds that never healed. I dropped the knife and stepped forward. Not because I wanted to, because it knew what I needed. The thing reached for me, not to grab, but to merge. To drink what I remembered, what I feared, what I still hoped. I felt its thoughts slide into mine. Images flickered through my head. Elise smiling at our wedding, her face slack and gray, in the hospital. Me alone in the house, holding a ring that no longer fit any hand. And then the ice beneath me cracked. I fell, not into water, into memory. 100 lives I didn't live. 1,000 deaths I didn't see, all of them layered like frost on glass, smothering me, numbing me, drawing me deeper into something older than thought. But then I heard her again, not the mimic. Her, just one word, run. I don't know how I broke free, but I did. I don't remember the climb, don't remember the steps. Just light, blinding, painful. The sun. I burst from the hatch screaming, lungs clawing for air. The cold seared my throat, but I was out. The sky had returned, the trees, the sound of birds. The lake was still frozen. No hole, no footprints. But I know what I saw, what I felt, and I know it's still there. I've packed a bag. I'm heading out, south, anywhere. The journal, I'm leaving here for you. Because someday you might find this cabin. And if you do, if you hear a voice calling from the lake, don't listen. If this story chilled your bones, leave a comment below with what you think the cold one really is. Was it grief, a creature, or something older than time? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more psychological horror and Scandinavian creature stories. Because sometimes what's buried in the ice still breathes.